Hello.
Hello, welcome back to Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. What camera am I looking into?
That way, I think.
Hold on, let me don't restart it. Hold on, let me just do it again. I didn't go far. Hello, welcome back to Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. I'm Crystal Acosta. I'm a licensed counselor in Texas and New Mexico, and my co-host is Andrea Luna.
Hi, everybody. I am a licensed professional counselor associate here in Texas, and my supervisor, Crystal, is here joining us. How exciting.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, if you all have been here since the beginning of the podcast back in 2018, we've evolved quite a bit. So, you will notice a few changes today. We really wanted to try to get to do a video podcast, so you will see what we look like and what I look like when I'm talking. And the podcast is now going to be more closely connected with my private practice, and it's called Clarity Counseling, Consultation, and Wellness here in El Paso, Texas, but we serve everybody across Texas and New Mexico. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, you definitely should. Click subscribe and like and share and all the things. We're going to be releasing episodes once every couple of weeks. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about changes and how things change and evolve and how we deal with changes and how clients deal with changes, I guess.
That's
it
important.
Could be. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the things that we'll talk about here too are going to be a reflection of what we see in the therapy room, which I think is important and people need to hear about more often.
Yeah, true.
Through the Eyes of a Therapist has always really been about like the clinician experience. And so I think bringing that to the real world will help people feel a little bit more comfortable about therapy, hopefully. Right?
Yes.
And also seeing that like it can be fun.
Yeah. And I think that you bring up a really good point. I always forget to mention the mission of the podcast is to humanize therapists, because sometimes we have that white coat effect on people, just depends. But at least we are some of the most unserious people that I know.
Our hair is red.
Right? Pink and red hair.
Unserious.
Yeah, and we're always joking around, but don't get us wrong. We are, I believe, pretty competent and good at what we do as therapists. We just have a personality. So there's that. But yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
We should maybe talk about like who this podcast is for then.
Yeah,
like,
we should.
It's not just, by no means is this like the therapy room, okay? Like we are not going to sit down and like break down problems for anybody. Go seek your therapist for that.
Yes, this is not therapy. Disclaimer, this is not therapy. Please seek your own medical advice.
Yeah, you probably should. It's a sign. This is your sign.
Mm-hmm.
But this is for people who are more curious. If you're curious about what goes on in the therapy room, if you are somebody who always thinks about like, what does my therapist think about? Like, show your therapist this. They would probably love it.
Exactly. So therapists listen to the podcast. People who are interested in mental health listen to the podcast. Other professionals and anybody who really wants to learn about therapy and psychology. Our mission is to humanize therapists, demystify therapy, and to break stigma about seeking therapy as well.
Yeah. So how about we do a little get to know you?
Sure.
I think it might be a good place to start and to remind people of how cool you are.
Oh, cool. How cool we are. Yeah.
So I'll start by asking you a couple of questions.
Okay.
And then we can kind of piggyback. And I really want people to really get the vibe of who you are, Crystal, because I think that it's important for people to see the vision of Clarity. But not only that, but the work that you do. I think like you're somebody who's very pioneering in the field, at least like from what I've been able to witness and like the time I've spent with you. And so I think I'd love for people to get to know you a little bit better now that you're in person too, or like visual.
Yeah, you can see
your coolness. See
my hair.
Okay, so I want to ask, and I'm sure like just you've probably mentioned this before in your other episodes, but what made you want to become a therapist?
Oh, yeah. I have talked about this before. I'm very transparent about this. When I was younger, I had issues with anxiety. Um, I have now more recently discovered that it was probably due to like ADHD and like neurodivergence, but what we called it back then was anxiety. Long story short, it was very difficult to find a therapist in El Paso that would work with my family. So my mom went on this mission to find psychiatrists, counselors, psychologists to try to help me figure out what was going on. I had like straight A's and I was like in elementary school. And then at some point, I just couldn't go to school anymore. It was really bad. So it was really hard to find somebody who could appropriately diagnose or appropriately treat. There were some therapists that were probably doing things that were unethical or things that were
rough.
Yeah, like just not the right thing, in my opinion, now that I know what I know, right? So yeah, that's kind of why I decided it was almost like a personal vendetta in a way.
That makes sense. It happens to a lot of us.
Yeah, to be like, hey, I want to be a therapist and I don't want to suck. And on top of that, I would also like to educate future therapists to make sure that they don't go and screw people up or do bad things or I just want to make sure that El Paso and our mental health scene, not that it's all in my hands, but I want to make an impact in our mental health scene. So that's why I became a therapist.
That's huge. And you mentioned some really important points. I think something that really resonates is like we all kind of fall into this field because there's something that's happened along the way. And I think you nailed it when you said like not that it falls in our hands, but like we want to help.
Yeah.
We want to do better.
Yeah. There's this quote by an actor named Al Franken, and he used to play this guy named Stewie in Stewart Saves His Family. It's an old SNL related movie, so if you know, you know. If not, I just dated myself. But he has this quote that says like, you can't save the entire world, and carpet the world, but you can wear slippers. So.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
I like that quote. And it's funny because it comes from a very unserious and weird movie. But it was a pretty good quote from there. Anyway.
I don't know if you can relate though, but I think we've all been through like a moment in our career. I know it happened for me in graduate school when like it really clicks that you can't help everybody as much as you want to, as much as you want to do for clients, like you can't.
Right.
And I think that was like my crisis moment during school where I was like, oh my gosh.
Like existential crisis.
Existential crisis for sure. I was like, I want to cover as much ground as I can. So if any of you, whether you're like a student or an associate, feel this, even like a licensed clinician that's been experienced, like we hear you. We hear you. Yeah. The imposter syndrome is real in this career.
Yes. And the idea of, oh my God, am I going to be able to help everyone? And it all falls on me. And this is never ending. And there's so many problems. And now I'm going into existential crisis or burnout. Yeah. I think those are so real. And you're right. Those kinds of issues don't discriminate across therapist developmental stages, right? Because there's like what people would call baby therapists. Some people don't like that term because it infantilizes people or whatever. But I think we walk before we run, we crawl before we walk, and that's kind of how therapist development goes. But yeah, we like to talk about stuff like that on the podcast as well.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this next question. And since we are working to demystify and like normalize therapists a little bit more, how about you tell us like something fun, like maybe like a comfort ritual that you have at the end of the day?
Ooh, yes, definitely. So, you know those what are they called? Like Snuggie blankets?
Yes.
Okay, so like after I get home, I just want to be alone for a little bit. I talk to people all day probably. Of course, I take care of household things or whatever, but after all that extra work is done, I like to put on like a Snuggie or put my feet in a blanket with like socks or double socks. I have to sleep with socks. I know, but I'm like real friolenta, so like I have to. And then I will play Animal Crossing.
I love Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Or I will scroll on TikTok for a while. I won't say how long a while is, but it's one of my favorite things to do because there's so many funny videos and educational things. So at least that's the side of TikTok I'm on. I'm not sure.
Maybe we should play Animal Crossing on here.
We should.
Let us know if you want us to stream Animal
Oh
Crossing.
my God.
That'd be so
We could. We could visit each other's islands. Yeah, it'd be great.
That's funny. Well, what kind of clients do you feel that you're most aligned with? Like you mentioned, you know, coming home and like trying to decompress. So what kind of issues are we facing?
I think during the day, so at Clarity, we specialize in trauma treatment and treatment of stress, depression, life issues, right? Just things that catch up with us over time. And I think some of that can be really, really heavy. So I really like to, even though I specialize in trauma and PTSD and history of assault or different types of adverse experiences that people have, I think it's important to sprinkle in different types of clients and cases. So, I mean, I'm not an expert at every single thing because I feel like I'm just going to segue a little bit off topic. Not off topic, but it's related. I think sometimes therapists want to do too much with too many different populations and too many people. I think that's good at the beginning of your therapist development because you're trying to figure out what population you serve best, who fits you best, all that. But I think over the long term, it's probably more important to niche down. You'll probably hear other therapists on social media and YouTube talk about that concept, and they're onto something. So I think for me, I really like to or enjoy treating like middle-aged women, fellow millennials, some Gen Zers also. And I also do like treating kids, but that's a population I haven't worked with in a few years, like consistently. That was a big part of my career the first few years. I think that it's important to sprinkle them in every once in a while, but yeah, pretty much anybody.
That's what it sounds like. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
How about like anything that you've had to unlearn as a therapist? Because there's a lot of populations that you mentioned there, and I heard you say like kids, which a lot of therapists tend to say like like I'm gonna stay away from kids. But what do you think are some things that you've had to unlearn to help adapt to those populations you now like to work with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that when we talk about unlearning, there's a lot of that happens over the lifetime as a therapist. So you're constantly unlearning and deconstructing, as well as learning new things, right? But you're kind of shedding these old habits or old identities that you have that probably are not helpful or that they don't work for the population you're working with, right? So sometimes it could be really site specific. So for example, when I first started working as a provisionally licensed. So like we used to be called LPC interns. Now you're called LPC associates, which I feel is more fancy. Yes, because when we would say intern, people would be like, so you're in school? Or like no. What year of college are you in? And I'm like, no, like I already graduated. Like I'm just trying to get licensed. So I think it was confusing people. So that's why they changed it.
Okay.
That's my theory.
Oh, it's a little degrading too.
Yeah,
I think so.
Intern, like, yeah, and that's like a whole other podcast, right? Like labels and like hierarchies and anyway, but that's how my brain works. So let's just not get off a topic too much. But for example, something I had to unlearn was like assuming things about myself. For example, when I started working, it was with teenagers and children, like young children, like as young as 3, and I was like, at the time, not very maternal. I kind of thought I really didn't want kids. I also didn't grow up around a lot of kids. It was really just me. I was like the youngest cousin, the youngest sister, the youngest person in my family. So it was hard to sort of relate to children. At least that's what I assumed about myself.
Yeah.
But then when I started working with kids, I realized that I was able to really build a lot of rapport with them like really quickly, and it was super fun.
Oh yeah.
And I loved being creative with them. So I could literally take, it was like MacGyver, like you could give me a box of like paper clips, a piece of paper and a crayon, and we would make like a game. Yeah, it was cool. So I think that it was something that really taught me, never assume anything really about your limitations or even like things that you might say you don't like, because you might like it.
That's true. And I actually remember a conversation that we had where I had initially told you, like, I don't like working with adolescents. And I work with a lot of adolescents.
Right. Yeah. And they like stay with you too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think teenagers are so fun to work with. Like they are at that middle ground where it's like I can talk to you like an adult, but also like I have to be mindful and we can still have fun. I feel like adults have a harder time like opening up to more like creative ways, you know?
Like reintroducing them to play.
Yes.
Or like little creative activities. They're kind of like, what do I do with myself?
Yes, like we have, well, because our adult brain creates like these expectations, right, from society. And so, yeah, I think that's the fun part about working with teenagers, but there is a lot of challenges. So I think it's really cool to hear somebody so experienced kind of tell us like, yeah, there's some things that I had to kind of like break down and try again and like unlearn to relearn something else. And so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think from your years of experience are some conversations that people avoid talking about? I love this
What
question.
don't they avoid? I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really depends on the person.
Okay.
But I think some things that people really, truly, truly avoid are things like politics or religion. And I know that it sounds like cliche to say that, but in the therapy room, I think it's important that we broach those topics as therapists. So a person or a client might not be comfortable talking about that, but I think it's our job to, address the elephant in the room, so to speak. So if I know that they're super avoidant about something in particular, I'll try to like poke and be like, let's see how this goes if we start to talk about this. But really, I think it just depends on somebody's history. They could really avoid anything that makes them really uncomfortable or triggered or stressed out.
I love talking about avoidance. I think that's probably one of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool when you see it. I think a lot of people don't understand that like avoidance comes from emotions. A lot of the time, like it's just like so uncomfortable that we're like, like I'd rather not. I always tell my clients to like avoid there. You can only like self-care or like healthy coping skill so much before it becomes like avoidance, right? Like there's like a threshold almost.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So like I have an example that I use in session, but like I'll tell my clients like I've heard like a few times already clients tell me like I think it's time for us to do like monthlies, and I'm like awesome, let's do it. Like let's talk about progress. Have you had that conversation with dad or with your partner or with your mom? And they're like, no, but I've been like wearing face masks every day or like going to the gym, and I'm like, cool. Okay, but are we just putting a band-aid on it?
Oh yeah. So like even using it like self-care to like avoid, right? It's interesting. Or maybe like telling you what you want to hear as a therapist.
Yes.
What people think we want to hear. I'm self-caring, I'm coping, but I really haven't dealt with the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. How about some deeper questions if you're up for it?
Sure.
So, how do you think being a therapist has changed you personally?
Oh wow. That's a big question. I think being a therapist has changed me a lot over time. I see it as like chiseling or like eroding of a landscape or something.
That's so creative. That's so Bob Ross. So Bob Ross. Insert clip of Bob Ross.
Right. Little pop him up on his little face. Anyway, yeah, I think over time it's made me really change my worldview. I think before I had a very almost individualistic worldview. And I think that has a lot to do with like acculturation. Like I'm a first generation Latina. And the second person in my family to get a master's degree. My oldest cousin has a master's degree. But he's significantly older than me. Sorry if you're listening to this. Oh my God. But yeah. And so, yeah, right. And I think that there was this level of like, I need to become acculturated and like not have an accent and be competitive and be individualistic. And like, that's how I'm going to make it. And I think over time, I've realized that that's not helpful for me in functioning. I was becoming pretty unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Bridges were being burned. Like, it was just not a good look or a good way to function. So I think my clients have also taught me a lot. You'll probably hear therapists say that, but I really mean it. Just kidding. Not
That's
that
true.
they don't mean it, but yeah, like hearing people's daily pain and like looking into their lives, I think really changes the way that you view the world and like life and like death. And like, I know that that's like super morbid and existential, but really I think that it has changed the way that my internal world has changed a lot as well.
I was scrolling through like Facebook. Yes, Facebook. On like those therapist
Facebook
groups. Well, like I'm a Gen Z, so
you're not supposed to be on
I'm not
Facebook.
supposed to say Facebook.
Right.
But anyway, I do have Facebook, and I was scrolling through like one of those therapist groups. And it was talking a little bit about like, fuck, I lost my train of thought. We're gonna have to edit that.
It's okay. No editing. I like it. Anyway, we were talking about existential like growth and like what happens when you're a therapist.
You were saying something about grad school, about like getting your master's.
First gen.
No, I lost it. I'm gonna come back to it.
Okay, we'll come back to
it.
That's fine.
But I think it's so cool that you've seen yourself change and evolve, because it shows too that like, first of all, like our job is entirely human, and at the end of the day it's two people connecting, and so it's not only the client evolving but also like us as people.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that I remember what I was gonna say now, haha. In this group I saw like somebody talking about how like being a therapist really like radicalizes you. And I think that's a really important take, because I don't want to say we are taught, because a lot of programs don't teach this. You learn and you adapt to the environment, so much so that you become really empathic, and like you start seeing how systems are affecting your clients, how like all these rules in place are hurting people. And so it's really hard for us not to be so like radical, because we care about people. I could be sitting across the room from somebody who I have nothing in common with, nothing I agree with them on, but the one thing that is common is like, you're having a hard time and I really care, and I want to get you to where you want to be, or support you to where you want to be. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you do that over and over and over and over for thousands and thousands of hours. It's gonna change you. Like it would be weird, I feel personally, if you came across a therapist who was like, nah, it's cool, like it's just a job, like I haven't changed. I'd be like, get out of the profession right now.
I mean, but they're out there, they exist, or else we probably wouldn't be here.
Interesting.
Truly. It's like a full circle moment. A toxic full circle moment.
Jesus, don't let those people find me. Let me just tell you.
That's so funny.
Yeah, a little scary.
I think that's probably one of the things that I would say has like helped change me. My career in this setting is relatively short. But I think like even just being in like the healthcare setting. So like I used to be a caseworker for about 6 years. And so that in itself is a little bit harsher, because we are in the system with the client and can't really change anything. And so I think seeing that has always like softened me up a little bit more to be open to different like opportunities, to different I don't know, like answers to things or solutions. And
creativity and resourcefulness.
That's actually the word. And so yeah, I think like that's something that I would really want people to understand about us. Like, it all happens so fast, and you're probably sitting across your therapist and you're like, oh, well, we're just having a conversation, but there's so much that's happening like in here behind the scenes that helps.
Yeah. I came across a TikTok the other day, and maybe I can link it below. It was just a new therapist creator I found, and she sort of listed out, I think, like 7 things that we're actively doing in session.
Ooh.
And she's reacting to somebody saying like, well, you just listen to people all day. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Oh. Did she get in a fight? Is she arrested? Just kidding. We'll bail her out. Just kidding. No, I think that it's important to understand what happens in a session.
Yeah.
There's so much. Maybe that's like a whole episode, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of cognitive work and emotional work, mental work, even physically. I feel like I need sugar all the time.
Or caffeine. I have never been a coffee drinker or like
Really?
none of that until now. And I think it's more like emotional. I don't even want to say like emotional exhaustion necessarily, more like the compassion fatigue is so strong.
Yeah.
Like I get home and I think because like I'm also very like empathic and just like like in tune with myself like that I get home and I'm just like cannot respond, can't like react, and so I just
little catatonic there.
Yeah, I just need a second, like please, and maybe like my weighted blanket. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like it's a lot that happens or that needs to happen for it to create like a catalyst for change.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. So much. So we'll probably make that an episode.
Yeah,
I think
that sounds
find
important.
That very interesting.
Well, what's a hard lesson your career has given you?
Oh my God.
I told you these were
There's
deep.
so many. The first one that comes to my mind is like being careful how you document things.
Oh.
I don't want to get into very, very specific things because I don't want to break confidentiality. Sure. But there was one time where I wrote something in quotations in my notes that ended up sort of causing a little bit of harm, like to the client. Thankfully, and everything sort of ended up turning out okay in the end. But it was something that really, really scared me. And this was maybe 3 or 4 years into my career. So I'm kind of glad that lesson happened early. I'm not happy that it happened. But I was able to really, really learn from that and grow in that aspect, like documenting very carefully.
This is so like dark, but I was like, I'm glad it happened to you, so then you could teach me and that it doesn't happen to me. Because as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, and I was like, Crystal has told me to try not to do that. And it's so interesting that you say that though, because in internship, I learned differently. It was like, quote, quote, quote. I had an internship at a community mental health agency. Not going to share. We
won't name names on the podcast.
Won't name names. But yeah, it was really interesting to see that and then like hear the opposite because I mean it makes sense. Like I should be more protective.
For sure. And at the place I was working at, we worked mostly with victims of crime.
Oh.
People, young kids who had like trauma history and stuff like that. So there was a very high likelihood of getting subpoenaed and court stuff happening, and it was just yikes. Yeah, intense.
Okay. Well, let's see. How about we have like a list of questions here to try. I'm going to be transparent. I can't lie. You could probably tell from like, if I told you a lie, you'd see right through the screen. What makes you nervous about starting this part of Clarity, doing the podcast, bringing everybody together, and like kind of letting our voices be heard loudly?
Yeah, I think that's probably the part that scares me a little bit, or like the most out of everything. It's always scary to put yourself out there. I think it's always scary to be an entrepreneur or a business owner or to even be a licensed professional, because there's always these powers at play where it's like you could function in fear, like fear of getting your license taken away, or fear of rejection, or fear of looking dumb, or fear of making an ass of yourself, or whatever. But I think now, and I wonder if it has to do with my age too. I'm almost 40, and I'm getting to that age of like, who gives a shit about anything?
That's true. Okay.
And I think that sentiment of like, I care a little less about what people think. I care a little bit less about my reputation or the way that I appear. It's not so much about like optics or performative stuff. I think really like part of my mission on earth is to, like be who I needed when I was little, number one. And then number two, like really help other therapists grow. And really help destigmatize therapy. And sometimes that takes like a boldness. And I think that is the scariest part, is that like, okay, now I have to like really, really step into who I really am and show people who I am, and like letting other people be who they are with me, I think is important. It's not as scary, but I feel like if I frame it that way, it helps me, keep my eye on the ball.
Yeah. I'm like reflecting on what you said too, because it's interesting to see like the dynamics change even in the room, right? Like you have a lot more experience. I feel like I'm relatively new, and so a lot of the things that you're saying, I'm like, interesting. I never have taken a second to notice that, but it makes sense. Like it's true when we're starting off, it feels a lot like, okay, I have to try to like fit in spaces. And even though as much as we may try not to, right? It kind of happens naturally. And so, yeah, like I can definitely say that like I've been met with that. Like I'm not even in my 30s yet. And so trying to figure out like what's the next step? Like am I doing the right thing? Is this going to set me up for success in the future? So it's cool to hear that like it gets better.
It does.
Like
oh yeah, I think it does, especially because I mean, I really view things through the lens of sorry, I gotta just
through the eyes of a therapist.
through the eyes of a therapist. Hopefully there's no glare there. I think viewing things through the lens of like development, like you're developing through your lifetime. And when I went to my supervisor training to become an LPC supervisor in Texas, that was like the focus of the way that we learned about therapists, right? And like how we are helping budding therapists grow into their own, you know? So yeah, I think if you view things that way, like, you know what, I'm still growing, like I might make mistakes.
I'm just a baby.
Yeah, I'm just a baby. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, but not to the point where you're using it like a crutch, right? Where it's like,
oh no,
I'm gonna go do something egregious and then like
because I'm just a baby.
It's like, no, that's not good. Yeah,
that's so funny. I mean. I think that prompts like a really important conversation about growth though, and like how, especially like as Latinas, like expectations follow us everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Whether you have an associate, a bachelor's, or no like higher education or a master's, or if you did your master's or not, and like siempre es algo, you know, like we can't meet that expectation period. And so I think the concept of growth in our culture, or in our community at least, is really important because it sends the message that like it's continuous.
Yes.
We never stop. Instead, I like to tell my clients like, instead of like goal setting, let's do like intention setting, because goals have a beginning and end, which means that there's an expectation. Intention is more loose, like it's open to interpretation. It's I aspire to get here, or this is like the general, I guess, direction.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have like it has to look like this.
Yes, true. Yeah, because then that can trap you into like, well, it didn't turn out this way, and then like black and white thinking, and I'm just gonna ditch all of it.
And then you have an identity crisis at like 30. And you hate your life. Yeah. And then you come to therapy.
Yeah.
Where then we'll teach you that. You know?
Right. Yeah, we'll help you.
What do you think? What do you think about like a growth and reinventing yourself with your experience? I was gonna say at your age, but I was like, that might not land.
Are you talking to me or talking to the audience? Oh, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm prepared.
I mean, what do you think? What perspectives do you have on that? Because I'm sure they vary a little bit from where I am at. Yeah. What do you think?
Growth and reinventing myself?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I view it as really gradual. Me. Like, again, like the eroding thing, the Bob Ross thing.
The Bob Ross thing. That's funny.
And sometimes life requires drastic change. Like something that I can think of is when I became a mom. That was,
oh yeah,
holy moly. I came from like a very individualistic, like almost like masculine, like let's get this shit, like sort of energy, right? And like very career focused. And then I had a child, and it was like, oh, nothing's about me ever, you know. I had to integrate my motherhood into like my identity. It was interesting. It's like when you fold eggs into some sort of recipe, you don't just like mix it, you like fold it.
That's so what's it called, like graceful.
Yeah, instead of like smashing it in there, you know. I think I've had to learn a few things about reinventing or like changes, but again, I think it's just gradual, lifelong. Especially as a therapist, I feel like that part of therapist identity and like career identity really gets into like personal identity, you know, like those two things converge a lot.
And we're constantly learning from others too. And so I think that that's really where we have to explore our own identity constantly.
Yes.
Because somebody in front of you, you're seeing them go through like a challenging situation or like just life pattern, and then they're like coming up on top and like things are changing for them. So I'm sure it like prompts a lot of us to just feel like, oh, like I constantly have to be doing something different to feel good. I mean, at least that feels pretty normal.
Yeah. And even if it's not to feel good, it's to evolve, right?
To evolve, yeah.
And to adapt and to integrate. I think something that another therapist taught me was that word, like integrate. Her name's Marilyn. She's been on the podcast before. We were talking about trauma one time, and I was like, yeah, it's like kind of accepting trauma or like coming to terms with it. And she's like, no, it's like integrating it. And I'm like,
that's rich.
That's so much. It's nuanced. And that's the thing too about like therapists. I feel like we're picky about words. I'm picky about words.
I am picky about
but
words.
there's a lot of nuance in what we do, and it's not black and white ever. You know? Except that was a black and white statement. It's never black and white.
That's true. That's funny. Maybe we should talk about like distortions at some point. That'd be good. You're like,
no, because then I'm going to need therapy on the air.
That's funny. Is it? Maybe that's a real conversation, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. So, well, we talked about, like, growth and just, like, that constant need for, like, evolving or need and want. But do you think going kind of, like, circling back to what we were talking about avoidance, that even for clinicians, like, that could become a cycle of avoidance? Like, if we're constantly trying to evolve with the client in front of us, that could also be a way of us actually maybe recognizing a need for rest or maybe a need to pause. And I speak from personal experience that I am somebody who needs those reminders of like, hey, chill out. Like, you don't need to go full speed. Like, things are going to come at the right time, because it's challenging. And I think early on in your career especially, but I'm sure even like going into like a second part of your life, like when you're done having kids or like when your kids are out of the house and now you're exploring like your identity again. So how do you think that we can avoid a little bit of that like imposter syndrome that comes with that?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think that I view things in systems, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about like telling yourself that you need to chill out because it's like you're doing too much, you're trying to get so many certifications or whatever it is, right? Like learning so much and involving yourself in so much. That could be part of, like imposter syndrome, but it could also be part of like just systemic expectations, kind of like what you were talking about earlier with being a Latina, right? Like we're never going to like really arrive anywhere. We're never going to be like good enough to others, right? Until we accept that for ourselves, like that we are good enough and that we are probably really good at what we do, you know? And sometimes it's not going to come from an external source. So I think really doing the work internally, that's also a very cliche term in therapy and amongst therapists, like do the internal work. And it's like, well, what the fuck does that even mean?
What does that look like? What the hell?
Yeah, but I really think it's about like a lot of self-awareness, like knowing who you are. I saw this Instagram post that said something like, no, you don't need another certification. You need to go to therapy.
That sounds personal for me.
Personal attack.
I'm like, what if I'm doing both at the same time? Does that count?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it does. But honestly, right, like if you don't know who you are and you haven't done like the internal work and you don't know what triggers you, what makes you happy and content and relaxed and rested and all these aspects of yourself, how can you relate to another human?
That's true.
And then relationship is where healing happens. At least that's my perspective.
I agree.
And that's why we focus so much, I think, like the school that I went to for counseling focused a lot on like person-centered techniques and really building a solid relationship with other people around you so that things can get done, right? Versus like, here's a technique, I'm gonna shove that down your throat, and I'm the expert. And that's a cool stance to have. And like, you have a PhD and you have all these certifications, but like, are you a human being? Like, do you know who you are? Like, can you connect to a person? If not, then I don't know how effective you are.
Or
you
exist outside of that role even.
Exactly. Like, how do you even know who you are if you don't exist outside of that? Because you are somebody outside of that.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if I have opinions about that now, I think, more than I did before. When I was a younger therapist, I felt like competence was really important. Like certifications were really important. So I think like what you're describing is like normal, you know? At least based on my personal experience, but also like from what I've heard from other seasoned therapists too. So I think you'll grow out of that. You know?
I hope so.
Yeah. No, you will.
I'm like, it's really cool right now, but it could get tiring, I'm sure, down the road.
Oh, yeah. And then how effective will you be?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I don't know. I just think like robots or AI could never replace a therapist, you know?
That's a conversation. That's
a whole
we're going to put a pin
episode.
on it for another day, too, because that's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
Went off on a tangent, sorry.
no, I think that was a really meaningful tangent, though, because you're absolutely right. And I think, like, my mind just goes back to those expectations that are, like, constantly being said that it happens, like, unconsciously and consciously. Like, we don't notice them, but they're influencing us. Or, like, we do notice them and we're trying to either actively avoid or actively challenge, but they're still there. They're like pesky little flies.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Never goes away.
And this is like a job where, or anybody that's in the mental health field or in any health field for that matter, it's a job where like you're constantly tested because you have to show up as the human that you are. Like when you're an engineer, maybe you can go and do the computer work and then leave and then be a human out there, right? Or if you are like an accountant, again, like very like there's like a project to do or something and you're there. But we connect with people for a living. Teachers too, like anybody who's an educator, like you connect with people for a living, so that we can't just turn that off when we get home.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part.
I want to turn it off
Yeah.
because I want to rest.
Yeah, for real.
So it's like, just leave me alone. I always joke, like, just leave me alone in my closet with snacks and the light off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always tell my husband that like I don't know how to small talk anymore.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no. Ooh, small
it's
talk.
so hard.
Like you mentioned it and I just got
I'm like, I need
itchy.
like
stress itchy.
Like I have a rush now, thanks.
Yeah.
I have like I don't know, like I tell him all the time, I'm like, I want to like spend time with friends or like, you know, go with people who are like not work related, but it's so hard because I feel so misunderstood. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
We're like the emos of the group now, aren't we?
Honestly, that's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, can we have existential conversations? Like, let's talk about like dismantling like oppressive systems. And people are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I don't want to talk about that right now.
My friends are like,
birthday party. A kid's birthday party.
We're about to have a shot. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, hopefully y'all can find a safe landing space here where you'll feel heard. Or at least can feel like someone's really, yeah, that's important. All right. Well, thank y'all for listening today. I think it's a really good place for us to start. This is exciting. So exciting.
Yes,
I'm a yapper.
So exciting. I am also a yapper. Once you start getting me going or I start to get to know you a little more, then you can't get me to shut up. But yeah, see me out there in the real world. I'm just kind of like in a hoodie and sunglasses, incognito, like don't want to be perceived. It's interesting.
I feel like now when we go places, I'm like, you're like emotionally what's it called, supportive, like assigned talk person. When you're like, you go, you share, like you talk, you introduce yourself, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So Andrea, like Andrea's part of the Clarity team now, which is great. She also used to be my student at UTEP, but I think that it's really cool to have Andrea here because she has this history of being in like communications, right, and marketing, but then like evolved into case management and then evolved into therapist now. So I think that she has a really unique skill set, and I really like to have Clarity be a place of like, I kind of view it as like a Montessori model, right?
I see that.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I know you're going to find your place in the organization. And once you fit in your like comfy corner, like go ahead, like go at it. We'll figure out how to make it happen. And I think that we owe a lot of credit to Andrea for restarting the podcast because God knows I did not have time before this to like do the podcast. But we understand that it's a really important like tool to communicate with people in El Paso, people who want to listen across the country or the world about mental health. And we've been around since 2018, so it was time to like resurrect it. And yes, thank you so much if you have been here from the beginning. I really appreciate your support. Remember to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Through the Eyes of a Therapist. You can find us on Instagram at ClarityEP or at Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. We have 2 separate pages. And we also have a Facebook page for the non-Gen Z people. Yes, right? Cringy. But yeah, and also we have a Patreon. So if you search Through the Eyes of a Therapist on Patreon, that helps us continue the podcast. It helps us support Andrea's work as well, or equipment or things like that. So we would really appreciate if you visit all of those places, and we will put everything on our link tree below.
Yes.
I don't know if you have anything else to say before we go.
No, just thank you for sharing today. I guess just to piggyback off of what you're saying, we'll be trying to post more regularly, hopefully every other week. And next time, I think we're really excited to introduce some of the clinicians at Clarity who will be having these important conversations with us and who will join us here from time to time to share their expertise, because they have these women have a lot to say. And I personally really admire all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm really excited for everybody to get to know them and just hear what they got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Andrea, for helping us kick off our newest season of Through the Eyes of a Therapist podcast. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we will catch you on the flip side. I never know what to say at the end.
We should have brought like confetti.
a little,
Yay!
like a little Animal Crossing confetti.
Yes, maybe we can like edit it.
Edit it.
But thank you guys. We'll see you next
See
time.
you soon. Bye.